Recording. Oh, where are you? Are you in Easter Island? Hey, did they call it
John,
Easter Island because the Easter Bunny lives there?
I guess there is a push to call it Rapa Nui now, as
Oh,
because
is
Easter
there? To get
Island, done by the people who came and conquered and spread disease. They, you
uh,
know,
that's the Rapa Nui.
Rapa Nui, the
Yeah.
Rapa Nui
How many
people.
people live there now?
Oh my gosh, I don't really know. It's probably, if I had to guess, it'd probably be under 10,000. It's a
Wow.
lot of them are Chileans, not Rapa Nui.
Yeah.
But interestingly, you can only own land there if you're Rapa Nui.
Interesting. That is
Yeah.
interesting. Huh.
So, what are we talking about today,
Well,
John?
today I thought I'd bring up this the idea of post-processing. So, how important is it that you have a command and knowledge of the post-processing tools that are available to us to and then how important, so twofold, how important is that part of the image creation? So it's twofold. How important is post-processing, and then how important is it to know about masking and layers and all the different things that we can do, luminosity masking? I mean, there's a lot of tools out there. How important is it that we know about those tools in depth so that we can use them to execute our vision?
Depends what your goal is. Um, Honestly, you've seen my prints. Are they decent?
Oh, they're phenomenal. They're better than decent. They're great.
Are they my post-processing techniques? Would you call those simple, mediocre, or
Yes,
advanced?
a simple.
Incredibly simple.
Yes.
And yet I can produce good prints. So my question is, when do you need the tools?
Yeah.
Like I've learned some new tools. I've come to you once to ask you how to do a layer.
Yeah.
I never could get it and I abandoned it. I can't do
That's how
layers.
good I am at teaching.
Yeah. But if I need a tool, I will learn it to execute my vision. And if I don't have a vision that requires a new tool, I just don't waste my time learning them. They're not needed until they're needed.
Huh. Yeah, and I disagree. I differ, not disagree. It's not that I disagree. I differ a little bit. I like learning some of these tools, and when something comes out, I will take some time and find imagery that it probably will work with and start playing with those tools. For instance, in the recent one of the most recent updates to Lightroom, and I believe it's also an ACR, is you now have AI denoise built right into Adobe's software now. And
Hmm.
so you can do that right from the get-go, and it's going to create a new DNG file that you can operate on that's got a nice clean file.
Hmm.
But even a bigger deal that came out with that release that a lot of people aren't talking about is you now have a curves dialog box for every mask that you create, whether it's a linear gradient, a radial gradient, whatever it might be.
I don't even have a clue
What
what
I'm
you're
talking
talking about.
about. Yeah. But see, it's the biggest thing I think that's happened in Lightroom in the last 10 years is to add that ability to do a curves dialog box. So now you have really, really great control over just that selection that you've made. So for me, the way I see it is knowledge of those tools, and that's what I like to do is share that knowledge by way of demonstration or webinars that I've done for Topaz for years, and webinars that I've done on my own and so forth, to give people those tools and knowledge sets so that in my mind that makes it easier for them to then execute their vision. So if they know in the field that they want this to be lighter or darker, they now have a tool they can go to and say, hey, I know right where to go. John told me, or I've learned on my own, whatever it is, that I can put this gradient, I can do the selection, I can lighten and darken it, and I can use curves and all those things. So to me, having some, it's almost like, go back to the music analogy, Cole. I mean, the more I learn the Mixolydian scale, the pentatonic scale, and I have all these different scales that I'm learning that I can then draw from those scales to create the music that I want to create. I liken it into that. I've got these scales that I have knowledge about, and those scales are going to allow me to then play a masterpiece.
I'm sure that I have events in my life that have caused me to take this position, but to me, that is technique-driven photography. I have a new toy or a new technique. How can I use it? We see it all the time. You buy a Lens Baby. And I don't want to pick on Lens Baby and make it sound like I'm against them, because I know there's a lot of people who love their Lens Babies, but they purchase the lens and then say, how can I use it? I prefer vision-driven photography where I envision what I want, then I say, what tool do I need to do that? And so I'm not against the tools. It's just I believe the vision comes first, and the tools play a supporting role. I probably have this attitude, maybe to an extreme, because I see the people who say I need a full toolbox before I can express my vision. And so they're constantly gathering knowledge and toys and gadgets, but they never get to the creativity part because there's an endless supply of new features or tools or gadgets, and they just never get there. So
well,
to me,
putting it that way, I think we're probably closer than further apart. Yes, if in fact that's what somebody is doing and they were a student of mine, I would step in at that point and say, but Joe, Larry, Mary, Susie, Tom, look, you're not spending near enough time on the vision part of your creative life. Let's stop worrying about all the lenses you own and how sharp they are and all the processing techniques and all. Let's start. What are you seeing? What are you being drawn to? Go back to all those types of discussions that we've had in other episodes here. So on that, we agree, but I don't think it's inherently wrong per se if you're interested in technology and in specifically in this episode, post-processing capabilities. Because for instance, with this, I was able to go back to images that I struggled with and say, I know exactly what I'm going to do with this technology now. I'm going back and I'm going to rework those images that I never have presented because I couldn't quite make them work with the tools I had before. So, but you're right. If you are just focusing on gear and processing and that's what your language is all about all the time, that's a problem.
and I ask people, don't answer this out loud. Just think to yourself, how much time, what percentage of your time do you spend on the technical, the cameras, the gear, the post-processing, and what percentage of your time do you spend on the creative?
Right.
And I see a lot of these people, we speak to people in clubs and you know where they're at. It's where I was at, 100% on the technical and no percent on the creative. And
Yeah.
you're not going to get there with that approach, in my opinion.
So back to the question, how important are the post-processing tools? I think we both agree that they're really important to have tools so that we can execute, but
when are they important?
Yeah, I think you've added a really valuable question. When do I need to learn about them? And you've told stories about like Ghost of Auschwitz. You didn't know how you were going to accomplish that until you were in the moment. So it's not like you needed to know how to make those long exposures ahead of time to make it happen.
Well, I had that one, my favorite image of the iceberg, number 22, and it was the one I could not photograph with a long exposure because he was rocking so badly in the surf, this guy right here.
Yeah.
And so I took a still of it and I went to a friend and I said, hey, here's what I want. How do I do it? And he gave me this technique. And it made it look identical to the other long exposures. Now, can I remember how to do that? No, I needed it. I used it. Now I've forgotten it. But I'm not opposed to those techniques if they're needed.
Yeah, yeah. So again, in that case, vision was driving the need. Hey, I know what I want to do. I couldn't execute it because it was rocking, so I couldn't do a long exposure. But I did. You did a short exposure to get them sharp, and then. Did you do a long exposure as well, and then you wanted to merge those two, or did you end up?
No, I did the long exposure, and he was rocking so badly it was just a mess. So I just took the still, and then he showed me how to. I think it was something with blur or something.
Yeah, I know exactly how it was done. Yeah, I've done the same thing. Yeah. So again, the technique or vision is driving the need for the technique to do something. So I think the cautionary tale here is all these processing things, especially right now, there's AI stuff coming out every day. Yeah. The tools are being improved every day. Don't let that be your focus. It's important. Sure, go and learn about them, but not at the expense of exploring the why do you photograph, the process that you arrive at with photographing, how do you show up to make photographs, thinking about your vision and learning about what is all those things that we'd love to talk about, not at the expense of those.
Good, good.
All righty.
Okay.
We'll see you next time, bud.
Okay, see you in a week.